Former UFC flyweight champion Brandon Moreno has announced his support for James Krause over social media after the UFC released its statement against Krause. So why do you think he voiced his support? Loyalty? Fans have also begged Brandon to reconsider his decision. Also, Raul Rosas Jr. has announced he wants to fight alongside Moreno at UFC 283. Do you think he's ready? Watch this video to get all the details, so stay tuned. First up, Raul Rosas Jr. wants to compete at UFC 283 with Brandon Moreno and wants a speedy turnaround. Raul Rosas Jr. intends to fight alongside interim flyweight champion Brandon Moreno at UFC 283, which will take place inside Jeunesse Arena in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, on January 21, 2023. Rosas Jr.'s UFC 282 debut on December 10th at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, where he submitted Jay Perrin in the first round, was memorable. Rosas Jr., only 18 years old, achieved the stunning victory that made him the youngest fighter to triumph inside the Octagon. The El Nino Problema is eager to return to action next weekend. Still, if that is not possible, he hopes to participate in South America with his Mexican counterpart next month. In his post-fight interview, Rosas Jr. said to the media that if there's an opening next week, he's ready to go back in there to fight, and if not, he's ready to go back in there in January in Brazil. He also said that he and Brandon Moreno could represent the Mexican flag, and it would be a fantastic night. Rosas Jr. has made it known that he intends to pursue the Bantamweight title as soon as feasible and that he wants to continue competing. 6 of the 18-year-old's 7 professional fights have been pure finishes, while his lone decision triumph came against Mando Guiterrez on Dana White's Contender series when he was just 17 years old. Next, James Krause versus the UFC. What happened? And UFC's statement regarding James Krause. Darek Minner, a featherweight fighter, faced Sha Yulin on November 5, 2022. After the game, the promotion told of a dubious betting pattern, and as the plot's twists came to light, James Krause's name kept coming up. Krause also serves as Minner's coach, as fate would have it. In the weeks since the fight, the UFC has aided several ongoing government investigations into the circumstances and events leading up to it. James Krause, Minner's coach, and the UFC were notified on November 18th by the Nevada State Athletic Commission that Krause's license had been suspended and would stay so while the NSAC looked into the situation. The UFC has subsequently informed Krause and the individual managers working with impacted competitors that fighters who continue to be trained by Krause or train in his gym will not be authorized to compete in UFC events, pending the conclusion of the government, as mentioned above investigations. The UFC has also released Darek Minner. The UFC considers the integrity of the sport to be the most crucial aspect of professional mixed martial arts, along with the safety and health of its combatants. The organization formally informed all competitors and team members weeks before the Minner bout that they, along with a select group of other clearly defined insiders, were not permitted to place bets on UFC events. This was an expansion of the UFC's earlier and later modified Fighter Code of Conduct and recognition of several national, state, and international laws and regulations that specifically forbid conduct that compromises the integrity of the sport, such as insider betting based on confidential information, fight fixing, and other similar misconduct. UFC will continue to take all necessary and suitable measures to guarantee adherence to the implementation of its policies and those of the countries in which it conducts business. Next up, supporters furious as UFC takes a risk due to James Krause that may affect dozens of fighters' careers. All UFC events will be off-limits to any competitors connected to James Krause. This disturbing information was made public following recent reports linking James Krause to shady betting behavior. The UFC released this announcement about the situation on Friday, after Darek Minner versus Shalian Noordenbeek. The NSAC suspended Krause's license in November. Before the conflict started, strange betting activity was discovered. In the years following his retirement in 2020, Krause will have trained more than 13 boxers and other notable stars. Tim Elliott, Grant Dawson, Darek Minner, Brandon Moreno, and Megan Anderson are a few of his competitors. He competed in the UFC and had some success there, taking on notable names like Donald Cerrone, Jorge Masvidal, and Anthony Smith. The James Krause betting incident has prompted many fans to express their opinions. The current UFC incident has enraged fans on social media. Here's what they had to say about it. If the entire story is true, a fan said he'd be surprised if Krause stayed out of jail. A supporter said he didn't like that Moreno was training so far away from home. He should move to a team with an alpha male, males his size, and a solid wrestling foundation. A fan asked if that implied Brandon won't fight. Another fan said a coach who manipulated bets against his injured fighters wasn't good. A social media user added, "Don't cut someone for his ties. Unbelievable, UFC. Remove the source. Because they knew they wouldn't win the fight, they decided to award themselves their fight of the night bonus. Yep, the homeboy's knee was damaged at camp, so they thought, let's make a shitload of money by betting Dark Minner won't make it through the first round." SMFH. TJ Dillashaw is still on the roster, hence, Cut Minor should be punished for failing to disclose an injury that affected the betting odds. Another commenter said after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, he accepted a fight on short notice since he's from Kansas City. He's a bookie. Check it out. Sheldon Westcott concluded that was BS, and he thought fighters were independent contractors. Brandon Moreno used a savage body blow to TKO Kai Kara France in the third round to win the UFC's interim Flyweight championship. Now he meets fierce rival Davison Figueiredo in a fourth bout. Kai suffered a third-round TKO loss at the hands of Brandon Moreno. In the co-main event of UFC 277 in Texas, Kara France won the interim Flyweight championship with a powerful body kick. Early in the third, Moreno received an elbow sliced below his right eye from Kara France. As soon as Moreno fell to the ground, Kara France started firing from the top and grabbed control of the battle. Moreno kicked Kara France viciously in the liver in the closing seconds of the round. The bout was stopped by referee Herb Dean at 4:34 of the third, when the New Zealander Kara France collapsed in agony after being hit by Moreno. Following his switch of teams after his last bout with Davison Figueiredo, Moreno claimed that he rehearsed that kick many times. James Krause had prepared Moreno for this battle, and Moreno claimed he worked so hard on it. Now that they may engage in a fourth battle, the Mexican seems destined to challenge Davison Figueiredo for the undisputed championship later this year. After the bout, Figueiredo, who was in the audience, approached the ring to give Moreno a standing ovation and to express his desire to face him a fourth time. Through a translator, Figueiredo declared, "This guy right here, it's his moment, and he is the champion." Figueiredo continued that he greatly respected Moreno and wanted to bring the next fight back to Brazil. Since 2020, the two have had a bitter feud, largely on Figueiredo's side. In December 2020, Moreno fought Figueiredo to a majority draw for the title. In an instant rematch, he defeated Figueiredo by submission before losing a disputed decision to their third bout in January. Additionally, Moreno assured Figueiredo that he didn't dislike him and had no animosity toward him. Moreno apologized to Figueiredo to forgive him if he offended him in any way. He wants to fight in December. Dana White, the boss of the UFC, said he hopes the sport will return to Brazil next year. He said that they'll see what this crazy world has in mind for them in the next 6 months. Finally, fans of the UFC want Brandon Moreno to change his mind since the UFC could fire him before the championship match with Davison Figueiredo. Since the UFC stated James Krause, the MMA community has been in full disbelief, even though it sent shockwaves across the MMA community. According to the UFC statement, fighters who choose to be taught by him or continue to train at his gym would be unable to compete in UFC events. Brandon Moreno, a current Flyweight championship contender, is one of his gym's more notable fighters. Apart from Krause, the fighters that train at his gym are the ones who are most affected by this remark. However, Krause has gained the support of Brandon Moreno. The Mexican did the following, which caused his supporters to worry about his future in the UFC and a prospective title fight. Brandon Moreno, nicknamed the Assassin Baby, expressed his support for Krause on social media, waiting for justice, the Mexican boxer said in an emotional social media post. Meanwhile, he shared a photo of them sharing a hug in the locker room. The discussion point also included the previous champion's decision to transfer camps just a few weeks before his championship match against Davison Figueiredo. As a result, his preparedness might be hampered. Here are some of the comments from the worried fans. A different supporter informed Moreno that his coach was wrong. "What justice, bro? He's wrong." And yet another fan attempted to open his eyes, saying Krause didn't care for his fighters if he was betting against them. However, a different admirer had advice for the Mexican boxer, telling him to find a new coach. A supporter attempted to explain to the former champion that Krause did what he was accused of, and it was time for Brandon to return home. Another fan said Brandon was a potential HOfer, and he should better not get tangled up with nonsense like that, and he should get a coach who gives Moreno his 100. A fan also told Moreno to relax before they tossed him out. Another fan also pleaded with the UFC president Dana White that Moreno didn't mean what he said. So that's it, guys. While Brandon has announced his loyalty to Krause, his actions might have consequences and affect his next fight against Davison Figueiredo. How do you think the UFC would react to his social media post? Let's hear your comments in the section below. Please remember to subscribe, and thank you for watching.